Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Louie. Thank you for joining me here on the program Week 11 National Football League recap of a big matchup for a lot of reasons. One, if you're Chicago, and excuse me, Chicago Bears hosting the Super Bowl defending champion Baltimore Ravens. And if you're the Chicago Bears, you lose last week at home to Detroit. Now Detroit is now a game ahead of you in the standings in your division, and they swept you in the season series. So you've got to win football games. You get a gift laid right in your lap as they go out to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers, a 3-6 football club, and the Steelers take care and dispatch of Detroit for you. So now you look at your situation and you got to feel like, hey, you got to take care of business. And your game ended after theirs did. So you already had prior knowledge that they had, in fact, been defeated by the Pittsburgh Steelers because of the delay. And we'll talk about that in the breakdown. So you already knew what was at stake. A share of first place back in the saddle at the top of this division was there for the taking if you could get past the defending Super Bowl champion Baltimore Ravens, who have some struggles of their own. They were able to exercise a few demons a week ago, winning at home versus their divisional rival in the Cincinnati Bengals. It wasn't pretty, but again, I was once told by a wise man, don't be pretty, don't be cute, be good. And that's what the Ravens were, good enough last week to win in overtime versus the Cincinnati Bengals. So they kept their season afloat with that win last week, but now they're looking to get back to 500, and a trip back to 500 at 5-5 could be exactly what the doctor ordered for this Baltimore Ravens team that has been struggling to string together victories since early in the season. They haven't had a running game to speak of. This offense has been anemic at times, like it was a week ago against Cincinnati. This defense has been keeping this team afloat along with the special teams. Let's see if offensively they could wake up, defensively continue with that intensity, and special teams help put them over the top on the road versus a starving, win-hungry Chicago Bears football team. Let's get to it. 4-5 Ravens. Ravens looking to get back to 500 on the season, taking on the 5-4 Chicago Bears. Bears desperately need a win to get back to 6-4, or excuse me, back to the top of this division, tied with the Detroit Lions at 6-4 with a victory. So this is a huge matchup for both teams involved. Opening possession for the Ravens is dominated by the run game, capped by Ray Rice. What? Wait a minute. Did I just say dominated run game and Ray Rice all in the same sentence? Hey, let me rewind. Rewind. Opening possession for the Ravens is dominated by the running game, capped by Ray Rice from 1 yard. I did say that. The running game actually woke up in this game. So, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome the Baltimore Ravens offensive line and Ray Rice to the 2013 NFL season. Everybody give them a hand. Glad that they could finally join us in this season when we're already 10 games deep. Thanks for showing up. They finally did something worth note in this game. Ray Rice well over 100 yards. Offensive line actually blocked for Ray Rice. Bernard Pierce still had his struggles, but Ray Rice turned it up in this game. He was huge in this Ravens game. And wow, it took a long time. Not to say that this is the end-all, be-all, and this team is going to be able to run the football from here on out. Just good to know that they can, or at least they did in this game. In windy conditions, Justin Tucker nails it from 52 yards to put the Ravens up 10-0 in this game. Then what preceded was an hour and 55-minute weather delay. Let's talk about Justin Tucker for a second. I think that he's one of the best young kickers in the National Football League. I think what happened with Justin Tucker is a simple case of your surroundings. And I think that he got overshadowed by what Blair Walsh was able to do in Minnesota, what Legatron was able to do, Greg Zuerlein in St. Louis. I think he got overshadowed by some of these other kickers that had extraordinary years. But he was extraordinary in his own right, and I think a lot of people bypass him when they talk about these young wave of kickers that have big legs that can get it done. This was a tough condition to kick in. I mean, it was windy. We're talking about 38-mile-an-hour wind gusts at Soldier Field. They don't call it the Windy City for nothing. The trash was flowing all over the place, all over the field. It was raining. It was wet. Hard to get your foot in and traction. And he nailed it like it was nothing from 52 yards. 10-0 Baltimore Ravens. Now let's get to this hour and 55-minute delay. The Ravens, if anybody should be used to this, it should be the Baltimore Ravens. They had a delay in the Super Bowl when the lights went out. They had a delay at the beginning of this season in Denver because of the weather. Now they have another one. So if anybody should be able to reacclimate themselves to play once it gets underway, it should be the Baltimore Ravens. So they're up 10-0. You have this hour and 55-minute delay. I know this isn't something that you can get used to, but if anybody in this game should be okay with this delay and be able to come back in and adjust to this game having to be stopped midway through the first quarter, it should be the Baltimore Ravens. And with a 10-0 lead, they should feel like they're in the driver's seat. We got a 10-0 lead. We've dominated the game to this point, and we've been in this situation on numerous occasions. We've got things that we can kind of point to say, hey, this is how we need to do it. This is what we need to do to keep ourselves prepared and ready to go when the NFL gives us the go-ahead to get back on the field. They've been in situations like this. They should have been able to come and take advantage of this situation and turn it into a positive instead of playing even football with the Chicago Bears. But that's exactly what happened. So 12 plays, 80-yard drive includes, and this is, of course, after we resume play, after that hour and 55-minute delay, 12-play, 80-yard drive, which included 5 snaps within the 7-yard line, but it still ends in a 20-yard field goal for the Chicago Bears. That's tough. But like I talked about with the Detroit Lions, you can get away with that drive ending in a field goal at home. You're on the road, that maybe needs to be a touchdown. Because you know the motto, I know the motto, but just in case you don't know the motto, I'm going to tell you it anyway. Field goals don't win games. Touchdowns do. And so, they got away with one there. Because that normally comes back to bite you 9 times out of 10. You don't score a touchdown with a 12-play, 80-yard drive with 5, count it, 5 snaps inside the 7-yard line. That means you got some type of penalty that aided you in getting a new set of downs, which gave you another set of opportunities to get in the end zone, and you still didn't cash in. That's tough to do, but you come away with a 20-yard field goal. A 20-yard field goal amounts to an extra point, which means you got stopped at the 2-yard line. That's tough to swallow, having to kick a field goal from the 2-yard line. But 3 points is always better than no points. So 10-3, Baltimore still leading in this game. Very next offensive snap is picked off by David Bass for a pick 6 and knocks it up at 10. What an athletic play this was by the defensive end, the rookie, David Bass. He knows it's a quick pass, it's a quick game. They tried to cut him. He was able to push the blocker down, disregard him, and get into the play. And Flacco sees him there, thinks he's not going to be able to react to the football fast enough, throws it and thinks he threw it high enough. Bass plucks it out of the air, takes off to the races. Flacco can't catch him. It's 10-all. Great play by this rookie defensive end that's been thrust into action with some of these injuries on this defensive line for the Chicago Bears. So you look at Torrey Smith, TD grab, makes it 17-10 Baltimore. Torrey Smith has been phenomenal this year for the Baltimore Ravens. Again, with all of the struggles offensively and the lack of running game in Baltimore and the struggles of their offseason and them not being a team that looks like they're going to make the postseason, a lot of people have really lost Torrey Smith in the shuffle of all of that. He's been playing at an extremely high level. One of my questions to this Ravens offense coming into the season was, who is going to be your number one target? Could Torrey Smith be that guy? He's answered that with a resounding yes, he can, and yes, he will. He's been absolutely phenomenal for the Ravens this season. Robbie Gould connects from 46 yards out as time expires in the first half. 17-13, Ravens take a 4-point lead to the half. That field goal came courtesy of a John Bostic interception. Great play by him to go up and get the football. This young guy out of Florida, this rookie, is starting to emerge as a guy that can make plays in this Chicago Bears defense. It was a nice play, and it yielded this Bears offense 3 points that would definitely come in handy later in the ball game. Lengthy. So Ravens go for it on fourth down. Flacco is stripped and fumbles the football. It's turnover on downs. Ravens were driving the football down the field, kind of in that fringe area between kicking a field goal, punting, and going for it on fourth down. They elected to go with the latter option, going for it on fourth down. Flacco tries to scramble, he actually tries to drop back and pass it. He doesn't have the time to do so. Ball is stripped out. Doesn't matter who recovers because it's fourth down and they didn't get the first down. So turnover on downs. Bears ultimately don't do anything with the football, but that was a key play because it stopped the Ravens dead in their tracks on a drive that looked like it had potential for points. Lengthy, methodical drive by the Bears results in an 11-yard screen pass to Matt Forte for a touchdown. That makes it 20-17 Chicago Bears. The Bears take their first lead of this game at 20-17, and they really needed to take the lead at some point in this game. Again, being down 10-0, having that delay, coming out, scoring 10 unanswered points to knot it up, then having Torrey Smith go and score that touchdown to push the Ravens back ahead. And they kept getting close and then getting pushed back down that hill. Finally good to get over that hill and that mountain by taking this lead on a nice screen play to Matt Forte for 11 yards, and the touchdown is now 20-17. Now it's up to this Bears defense to secure this victory. It's muddy. It's sloppy outside. Time for this Bears defense to grit down and get a stop and win this football game. Ravens on the final possession of regulation march right down the field, and you know Joe Flacco is money when it's clutch time. That's why they paid him all those bucks. That's why he's the $120 million man. For instances like this, when the game is on the line, Joe Flacco becomes Joe Cool. And he was cool as the other side of the pillow on his final drive. Wasn't able to get them in the end zone, but he did the next best thing. Got them into field goal range. And I talked about Mr. Tucker earlier. He was able to pound it home to send this game into overtime. Huge play on this drive that set up the field goal to send it into overtime. Dallas Clark, one-handed stack on fourth down. Without that catch, there's no overtime in this game. And Dallas Clark, say what you want about him being older, about him not catching the ball as much as he used to in Indy. This guy has been a force for this Ravens team, and he's been exactly what the doctor has ordered for them. And with that Dennis Pitta injury, he's come in and filled that void the best way he knows how. And it's been very refreshing for the Ravens because without him, I don't know what they would do at the tight end position because Ed Dixon is so inconsistent. And so Dallas Clark and that one-hand stab kept this game alive for the Baltimore Ravens as Justin Tucker knocks the field goal home to send this game into overtime. And in overtime, Ravens win the toss. They drive it up to about midfield, a little bit past it, have to punt the football as they cannot get a new set of downs. And at this point in the game, you don't want to attempt a long field goal. Keep in mind, we're dealing with windy, wet conditions. Footing isn't the best. You don't want to send your kicker out there. Mind you, that 52-yarder that he made was before the field was torn to shreds with the sogginess and all of that. You don't want to send him out there for a 55 or 56-yard field goal, which is what it would have been if they would have decided to trot him out there for that. With these conditions, you can't afford to do that in overtime. You got to punt the football and make the Bears drive the length of the field and get in the field goal range to beat you. And that's, unfortunately, exactly what the Bears did. Josh McCown continues to play steady football for this Bears team in the absence of Jay Cutler. He was solid in this game. Didn't make any egregious mistakes and just kept moving along, moving this offense along and then he finally started to make plays at the end of the game. A huge third down catch by Alshon Jeffrey was followed by a tremendous 43-yard grab to Martellus Bennett. And that drive was huge because after that, if the Bears would have had to punt, then it would have been sudden death. Next points win the game. Bears had the opportunity to win it with the field goal, and that's exactly what they did. Went down the field. That Alshon Jeffrey catch on third down, money. Bennett, 43 yards, gets them well into field goal range for Robbie Gould. They get a little closer, and he knocks it home as the Bears, in overtime, get it done, 23-20. They get to 6-4 and get a share of first place in the NFC North. With the Packers struggling, and they end up losing in New York, and the Lions losing in Pittsburgh, Bears are right there sitting pretty atop this division, tied with the Detroit Lions. So this was a huge win for the Bears, and they continue to keep the ship afloat in the absence of Jay Cutler. I can't stress that enough. We've seen the Vikings sink this season because of their quarterback situation. We've seen the Packers starting to dip in this division. When Aaron Rodgers exited this team, this Packers football team was 5-2 and in sole possession of first place. Since he's left, they've lost 3 games in a row, and they sit at 5-5 in this division. So what Josh McCown has been able to do in this stretch can't be understated. You have to give him credit for coming in and essentially winning 3 games for the Chicago Bears football team. He won at Green Bay, 2 games, for winning 2 games out of 3. He almost pulled a rabbit out of his hat in Washington. They go and beat the Packers in Lambeau, and then somehow, some way, they're able to pull this game out when it seemed like down 10-0, they were going to be in some trouble. He was able to take this team down the field and get them in position to take the lead at 17-13, and then later on in overtime, take them down the field, put them in field goal range to win this game. So, huge matchup won by this Chicago Bears team. If you're the Ravens, again, I feel like the Ravens aren't a good team, and you're going to have these games where last year you probably win this game. You find a way to gut this out, much like you did against the Patriots, much like you did against Dallas last season. You found a way to win these close ball games. This year, not so much. You were able to get one last week against Cincinnati, but it just hasn't been going your way this season like it was last year. And that's just a byproduct of all of the changes that have been made this year. Ozzie Newsome was rushed off in an ambulance at the end of this game. He's fine. He's okay. Good to know that Ozzie Newsome is all right, but that was a little bit of a scare for the Ravens. But this is a 4-6 team now. You're in a 3-way tie for second in your division, which doesn't mean much because first place in your division is 7-4 Cincinnati. And so if you want to take some solace in that, you still have one more matchup with them in Cincinnati, and you've already beaten them once at home. So if you can string together some wins somehow, some way, you could climb back into the race in your division, but I just don't see it happening. This is what you'll get from the Ravens from week to week. But I tell you what, it was good to see this run game wake up. If only for a week, they did run the football effectively with Ray Rice. Now let's see if you can translate that into a week-to-week thing in Baltimore. And so that's going to do it for this edition of In the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me. That happens in the National Football League, whether big or small. We cover it all here in the Lab Room. Thank you for joining me. Come back as I've got plenty more games to break down at week number 11 of the National Football League.